ever by improving the quality, speed, or price at which value is delivered. Major shifts on the demand side are also occurring as growing transparency, consumer engagement, and new patterns of consumer behavior increasingly build upon access to mobile networks and data, force companies to adapt the way they design, market, and deliver products and services. A key trend is the development of technology-enabled platforms that combine both demand and supply to disrupt existing industry structures, such as those we see within the sharing or demand economy. These technology platforms, rendered easy to use by the smartphone, convene people, assets, and data, thus creating entirely new ways of consuming goods and services in the process. In addition, they lower the barriers to entry for businesses and individuals to create wealth, and in the process altering the personal and professional environments of workers. These new platform businesses are rapidly multiplying into many new services, ranging from laundry to shopping, from chores to parking, from massages to travel. On the whole, there are four main effects that the fourth industrial revolution has on business, on customer expectations, on product enhancement, on collaborative innovation, and on organizational forms. Whether consumers or business customers are increasingly at the epicenter of the economy, which is all about improving how customers are served. Physical products and services, moreover, can now be enhanced with digital capabilities that increase their value. New technologies make assets more durable and resilient, while data and analytics are transforming how they are maintained. A world of customer experiences, database services, and asset performances through analytics, meanwhile, requires new forms of collaboration, particularly given the speed at which innovation and disruption are taking place. And the emergence of global platforms and other new business models finally means that talent, culture, and organizational forms will have to be rethought. Overall, the inexorable shift from simple digitization of the third industrial revolution to innovation based on combinations of technologies, the fourth industrial revolution, is forcing companies to re-examine what they do and the way they do business. The bottom line, however, is the same. We all need to understand their changing environment, challenge the assumptions of their operating teams, and relentlessly, continuously improve and innovate. Different to the first three disruption is that whereas each of the last three was informed by one major force causing spiral reaction, this one is influenced by a confluence of four factors shaping the global balance and the 21st century disruptions. These are globalization and urbanization, accelerated mobile technology changes, trade, data, and finance, and lastly, the global aging and population decline. The first trend is the shifting of the locus of economic activity and dynamism to emerging markets like China and to cities within those markets. These emerging markets are growing through simultaneous industrial and urban revolutions, shifting the center of the world economy east and south at a speed never before witnessed. As recently as 2000, 95% of Fortune Global 500 companies, the world's largest international companies, including Airbus, IBM, Nestle, Shell, and the Coca-Cola Company, to name a few, headquartered in developed economies. By 2025, when China will be home to more large companies than either the United States or Europe, it is expected that nearly half of the world's large companies, defined as those with revenue over $1 billion or more, shall be headquartered in emerging markets. Perhaps equally important, the locus of economic activity is shifting within these markets. The global urban population has been rising by an average of 65 million people annually during the past 3 decades, which is the equivalent of adding 7 Chicagos a year every year. Nearly half of the global GDP growth between 2010 and 25 will come from only 440 cities in emerging markets. 95% of them small and medium-sized cities that many Western executives may not even have heard of or couldn't point in a map. Yes, Mumbai, Dubai, and Shanghai are familiar. But what about Hsinchu in the northern Taiwan, Brazil's Santa Catarina state, halfway between Sao Paulo and the Uruguayan border, or Tianjin, a city that lies around 120 kilometers southeast of Beijing, which is equal to 37% of South Africa's GDP. By 2025, it is estimated that the GDP of Tianjin will be around $625 billion. This is almost double the size of the entire South African economy. The second disruptive force is the acceleration in the scope, scale, and economic impact of technology. We mentioned earlier that technology from the printing press to the steam engine and the internet has always been a great force in overturning the status quo. The difference today is the sheer ubiquity of technology in our lives and the speed of change. It took more than 50 years after the telephone was invented until half of the American homes had one. It took radio 38 years to attract 50 million listeners. But look at Facebook, which attracted 6 million users in its first year, and that number multiplied 100 times over the next 5 years. China's mobile text and voice messaging service, WeChat, has 300 million users, more than the entire adult population of the United States. Accelerated adoption invites accelerated innovation. In 2009, 2 years after the iPhone was launched, developers had already created around 150,000 apps. By 2014, that number had hit 1.2 million, and users had downloaded more than 75 billion total apps. This is more than 10 for every person on the planet. As fast as innovation has multiplied and spread in recent years, it is poised to change and grow at an exponential speed beyond the power of human intuition to anticipate. Processing power and connectivity are only part of the story. Their impact is multiplied by the concomitant data revolution, which places unprecedented amount of information in the hands of consumers and businesses alike. And the proliferation of technology-enabled business models, from online retail platforms like Alibaba to car-hailing apps like Uber. Thanks to these mutually amplifying forces, more and more people will enjoy a golden age of gadgetry, of instant communication, and of apparently boundless information. Technology offers the promise of economic progress for billions in emerging economies at a speed that would have been unimaginable without the mobile internet. 20 years ago, less than 3% of the world's population had a mobile phone. Now 2/3 of the world's population has one. And 1/3 of all humans are able to communicate on the internet technology, which allows businesses such as WhatsApp to start up and gain scale with stunning speed whilst using little capital. Cities and the startups now frequently enjoy advantages over large established businesses. The furious pace of technological adoption and innovation is shortening the life cycle of companies and forcing executives to make decisions and commit resources much more quickly without much information. The human population is getting older. It's the rise of the silver fox, and fertility is falling, and the world's population is graying dramatically. While aging has been evident in developed economies for some time, Japan and Russia, for instance, have seen their population declines over the past few years, and this demographic deficit is now spreading to China and soon will reach Latin America. For the first time in human history, aging could mean that the planet's population will plateau in most of the world. 30 years ago, only a small share of the global population lived in few countries with fertility rates substantially below those needed to replace each generation, which is 2.1 children per woman. But by 2013, about 60% of the world's population lived in countries with fertility rates well below replacement rate. This is a sea change, ladies and gentlemen. The European Commission expects that by 2060, Germany's population, for an example, will shrink by 1/5, and the number of people of working age will fall from 54 million in 2010 to 36 million in 2060, a level that is forecast to be less than France's. China's labor force peaked in 2012 due to income-driven demographic trends. In Thailand, the fertility rate has fallen from 5 in the 1970s to 1.4 today. A smaller workforce will place a greater onus on productivity for driving growth and may cause us to rethink the economy's potential. The final disruptive force is the degree to which the world is much more connected through trade and through movements in capital, people, and information. That is data and communication. This is what is generally referred to as flows. Trade and finance has long been part of a global story but in recent decades, there's been a significant shift. Instead of a series of lines connecting major trading hubs in Europe and North America, the global trading system has expanded into complex, intricate, sprawling web. Asia is becoming the world's largest trading region. The so-called South-South flows between emerging markets have doubled their share of global trade over the past decade. The volume of trade between China and Africa rose from $9 billion in 2000 to $211 billion in 2012. Global capital flows expanded 25 times between 1980 and 2007. More than 1 billion people crossed borders in 2009, over 5 times the number in 1980. These 3 types of connections all paused during the global recession of 2008, but have since recovered. But the links forged by technology have marched on uninterrupted and with increasing speed, ushering in a dynamic new phase of globalization, creating unmatched opportunities and fomenting unexpected volatility. This is a world phenomenon, ladies and gentlemen, and we, as part of the flat world of globalization, are not immune to this phenomenon. While we've already noted that the pace and scale of these 4 confluences collectively have a material impact on the world economy and are disrupting long-established patterns in virtually every market and every sector of the world economy, and indeed in every aspect of our lives. Everywhere we look, they are causing trends to break down, to break up, or simply to break. The fact that all 4 are happening at the same time means that our world is changing radically from the one in which many of us grew up, prospered, and formed intuitions that are so vital to our decision-making. This can play havoc with forecasts and pro forma plans that were made simply by extrapolating recent experiences into the near and distant future. Many of the assumptions and tendencies and habits that had long proved so reliable have suddenly lost much of their resonance. Our intuition has been formed by a set of experiences and ideas about how things worked during a time when changes were incremental and somewhat predictable. In this new world, all of us need to scrutinize our intuitions from the first principles and boldly reset them if necessary. We've never had more data and advice at our fingertips, literally. The iPhone or Samsung Galaxy contains far more information and processing power than the original supercomputer. Yet we work in a world in which even perhaps especially professional forecasters are routinely caught unawares. We need to realize that much of what we think we know about the world, about how the world works, is wrong, and get a handle on the disruptive forces transforming the global economy. Identify the long-standing trends that are breaking, develop the courage and the foresight to clear our intellectual decks and prepare to respond. These lessons apply as much globally as to local businesses. And the process of resetting our internal navigation system can't begin soon enough. There is an urgent imperative to adjust to these new realities. Yet for all the ingenuity, inventiveness, and imagination of the human race, we tend to be slow to adapt to change. There is a powerful human tendency to want the future to look much like the recent past. And on these shows, huge corporate vessels have repeatedly foundered. We need to accept that revisiting our assumption about the world we live in and doing nothing will leave many of us highly vulnerable. So let me take this opportunity to reflect on some of the challenges that we have faced in recent past, to which we certainly are doing our best to reset our intuitions and respond appropriately. Remember the challenges we used to have 5 years ago about service station tenure and service station valuation whenever you wanted to acquire or dispose of your interest in engines.